One, two, one, two. You know what time it is. Mm. Oh. One, two, three, four. Spread yourself. Uh-oh. Who that be? Who that be? Oh, say hello. Say hello to my little friend. What's up, Miss Freckles? Spread yourself. Whatever you do. I don't know. I feel like dancing tonight. I might have to find somewhere to go out so I could get my dance on, man. We're going to have a virtual party. That's what the deal is. I'm going to have to get some old school music and y'all just dance for y'all. Oh, that's what we'll do. We're going to get a little room. No, not that kind of room. A little room. In Facebook, I guess on the inbox or whatever, I see them doing their little advertisement, a Zoom or something like that. Oh hell yeah! Me and 35 women. No, I'm just playing. Only 34. A kangaroo. So let the hang do the thing he do. Spaggy do get that. What up, little bit? But that diggy the bob. There's certain dances that came out that we'll always do. When we 99 years old, I think I'm gonna still be bouncing and trying to prep and probably a little walk. Yeah, I remember that. Wow. Joint hurt my neck. I'm gonna be 105 still trying to do the running man. Don't run from me, bring that ass here, girl. Do it good. Go on and do it. I'm just tripping. What's up, people? How y'all doing? Skigga-doo-da-boo-doo-doo-doo. Skigga-doo-doo-boo-boo. Skigga-doo-da-boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Do it, Lord. A-I-O-A-I-O-A-I-E-I-O-U. Sometimes Y-W. That's a joint right there. One day I'm gonna change my song. It just won't be today. I see they're playing my song on commercials now. Ba-da-da, ba-ba-doo-da, beep, ba-ba-doo-da. Like everybody from the 60s and 70s had a signature scream. Well, anyway. I'm waiting on a couple people, but in the meantime, let me just do this. I just want to thank everybody for the prayers and well wishes for my sister. She's doing as best as can be expected. And the quick and dirty is she had a mild, there's any such thing as a mild stroke, last Friday. And now she's just going through the process of headed towards a rehab so that she could I get some of the deficiencies back. She's got some left side weakness and things of that nature. A little difficulty talking at times. I got a chance to talk to her a couple times yesterday. I didn't call it a day because I've been working on this podcast and I've been going back and forth and back. So everybody that sent her well wishes, you showed me love by showing her love, and for that I truly appreciate it from the heart. So I forgot to put out the advertisement, but you guys need to know, come Thursday, hell or high water, I'm going to be here. Um, I've been here through COVID-19 and Christmas, so I guess I'll be here come with May. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and get started because I don't know how I'm going to cover this because it's one of these things that's kind of near and dear. I've been looking for something to break the monotony of politics and Black Lives Matter and COVID-19, but it's kind of hard to ignore it when so much of it is going on. So I want to kind of give you guys an update as to what's going on and some of the things I find out and just kind of break it out in my terms. So with that said, I'm going to just welcome everybody to tonight's podcast. As we know, everything is kind of centering around two things, COVID and Black Lives Matter. The reason I decided to talk about this tonight is because right now we have the nation and the world's attention. But all we're talking about really is what happens when black and brown men have police, quote unquote, encounters, like you're being abducted by an alien or something. And I think we should take it further. Since we have this momentum, since we have everybody's attention, let's, instead of just talking about defunding the police or redesigning what policing should look like, I think we should look at the whole damn system, especially the criminal so-called justice system having to do with the courts. This is an election year, which means we can get some things done. The court system is to me, it's an even larger problem than the police force. And I say that simply because as soon as we enter what's called the criminal justice system, we are assumed to be criminals. These judges hand out these relatively huge bonds to poor people in general, but specifically, I don't know, I got something up in here. So, but specifically to black and brown men. If you don't have a job, if you're unemployed, if you're homeless, if you're having any of these issues, coming up with $100 is like coming up with $1 million to some people. And the reason I say this is because I always think of the case of the 16-year-old boy, and I talked about it before, so I'm not going to talk about it now. But the quick and dirty was his mom couldn't come up with $300. So instead of him having his rights to a speedy trial, he wound up being incarcerated for 4 years without being charged or without going to court. That would never happen, to a white man. It would never, certainly not to anybody with resources or money. And I think one of the reasons it happens is because when poor people or black people into the criminal justice system, we're represented by inexperienced public defenders who at best can give us subpar representation. They don't know what they're doing. They're overwhelmed with the number of cases, so forth and so on. This problem is exacerbated by young prosecutors who are ambitious trying to make a name for themselves. So they know that poor people, black and brown men, are easy pickings. So they prey on them to make a name for themselves and to make their prospective bones. Once in the system, we never get the benefit of the doubt. Let's face it, without money, you're guilty until proven innocent. Once in the system, again, it makes it hard for us to reinvent ourselves, which means we can't qualify with background checks. We can't qualify for any job other than some menial bullshit job if they get any job at all. So some of them become unemployable and wind up right back on the streets. Before you know it, they're three-strike losers. So tonight I'm going to talk about three things before I go off on a tangent. I'm going to talk about black police encounters, black civil rights, respect, white police encounters, and constitutional rights. That's just one. I want to talk a little bit about the young millennials versus us aging baby boomers, I guess we'll call. And third, I want to talk about the court system. And I think that's where we needed to be headed. If we're going to talk about defunding and reform, then we have to deal with the court system, I think. So tonight's podcast is called Policing the Just Us System, because there's no justice in watching the watchers. As children, most of you guys are my age, some a little older. We lived through the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, just to name a few. But those four people, we talk about the turbulent 60s, but all of that happened between 1963 and 1968. So in a span of 5 years, these four prominent people were assassinated. And as a result, we would change. We saw things, we lost, I guess in a lot of ways, we lost our naivety. In a lot of ways, we grew up feeling like if they could kill a president, they certainly don't give a shit about me. I remember up until King was killed, being called black was fighting words. And then James Brown started this whole Black Power movement with one song, Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And the most profound thing that he said in the song is he said, I'd rather die on my feet than to live on my knees. Ever since I've been black. But what we thought that adding black police to the police force would change how we were treated. Instead of changing the police force, these men initially had to change to fit in to the police culture. As they changed to fit in, we gave them names like Sellout, Oreo, Uncle Tom, Pig. Soon they became blue and no longer saw themselves as black. And our community suffered, as I'm sure they did as well. But a badge and a gun taught us something. It taught us that sometimes the only thing worse than a white cop was a black cop with a badge and a gun and some self-hate. Then the police realized, as time went on, that they were not immune to the racism. As time went on and as we got into today's world, police realized that they had to give their sons the same talk that we give our sons on how to behave. Because they had the inside scoop. They knew about the attitudes of all this testosterone and this mob mentality of 2 or 3 cops gathered on the scene together and trying to impress each other. In several instances, them themselves were policed. Now, I brought all of this up because I say this. First of all, we should not have to teach our children to bow down or capitulate simply because they are black, especially our sons. My mother taught me, she said, son, when I was coming up, you had to look down and look away. You couldn't look a man in the eye, especially a white man. She said, so you look him in the eye and you let him know that you mean what you said. Seeing some of the things that my father and my grandfather went through, I grew up with a chip on my shoulder the size of a California redwood. So I grew up very proud. I had teachers, I had pastors, I had clergymen, I had counselors, I had old people. I had a whole village or community telling me that I had something special and you were very smart and you have this talent and you need to do this and you need to do that. So I dreamed big and I came out with an opinion. M-O-U-T-H, opinion. And then I remember I graduated in the top of my class from Charity School of Radiology. I transferred to Howard University in D.C. and I had all of these job offers. I quickly had a reputation for knowing my stuff. Within a year, less than a year of being in D.C., I had purchased a red Porsche. I was wearing designer suits and I'm wearing a Movado on my wrist and I'm doing all of these things. And I had this apartment on the top floor in Arlington overlooking the DC skyline. So I felt like George Jefferson. I felt like I had moved up. Consequently, you couldn't tell me nothing. And it wasn't that I was arrogant, I was proud. I felt like I was doing what my parents, and especially my father and my grandfather, couldn't do. I saw my dad work for a public service for 32 years. And I remember the things that they said to him as he retired. And I remember being confused because in my childlike mind, it was a compliment. And I couldn't understand why he was embarrassed until I became a man myself. Now I'm an educated black man with an attitude, driving a red Porsche. And I remember coming from New Orleans back to D.C. I'm driving through North Carolina. And there was a black 5.0 Mustang, and this is when they first made the 5.0s. You know, this was supposed to be the fastest car and blah, blah, blah. And this black Mustang kept coming on the side of me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, out of here, man. And on top of that, I'm listening to Public Enemy, so, you know, I'm hyped up. Don't believe the hype. Yeah. Elvis was a hero to many, but he never met. You know, understanding? So I'm already psyched up. And here's this black Mustang. And I'm like, what's wrong with this dude? So I pulls off, I drop downshift, and I pulls off. He caught up with me again. And I'm just like, let me let this fool go. So when he caught up with me, I hit my brakes and I slowed up. He pulled up a little bit. Then he slowed down and got behind me. When he did, I said, this dude is tripping. So I dropped my shit and I pulled off. When I hit about 80, he puts a light on the top of the car, and he comes behind me with sirens, lights and sirens. I said, yo, man, that's some bullshit. This had to be 1989 or 90. So I'm talking back to the dude. I'm driving a red Porsche with license plates that said Envy, E-N-V-Y. And when people asked me what it meant, I used to say, to be young, gifted, and black is an envious thing. And I was unapologetic about it. I didn't care. I felt like I owed it to my parents, my grandparents, and all of those people that had invested in me in my neighborhood in New Orleans. He wrote me a ticket and he let me go. But before he let me go, he says, so how you get a car like this? I said, I'm a drug dealer. And I put this shit in low and I pulled off. That's how belligerent, that's how pissed I was. A few years later, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, coming from a little club, and I had had a couple of drinks, and I was going from state to state. I had started a staffing agency, so I had some contracts with different hospitals. So I would be in this place for this while. I might be in Columbia, South Carolina for a couple months. Then I'd be in Nashville, Tennessee, and most of these were, redneck towns, but I'm making the money. I got the connections because I'm working with the hospital. So I got a certain little attitude. They're paying for my apartment and my hotel and what have you. So you can't tell me nothing. I'm taking my to Old Town Road. You understand? So I'm driving a Porsche. I had switched my tags over to Georgia. I had an apartment in South Carolina. And I had a Virginia license. And I had been drinking. But I know I wasn't drunk. I only had one drink. When I go out, it's a different, and a couple of my boys on here, they know I'm more about dancing than I am about, if I'm going to get my head bent, I'm going to do it at home. You understand? So when the guy pulled me over, he said, where you coming from? I said, I'm going home. Where you coming from? And he looked at me, same Porsche, and he says, license and registration. I said, what you stopped me for? He says, license and registration. Now, mind you, a friend of mine was an attorney in Atlanta, and I had her on the phone. I said, hey, look, I just got pulled over by this cop. I want you to listen. So I'm way ahead of the game. At the time, we didn't have the video on the phone, but my little flip phone, she could hear the conversation. I said, I need you to know that my attorney's on the phone. I said, Miss Stanley, would you say hello? So he says, where you coming from? I said, again, where you coming from? Why is that necessary? He says, have you been drinking? I says, I tell you what, let's get out the car right now and I'll do a sobriety test right here, right now. I avoided answering the question because I didn't want to incriminate myself, but I knew I could pass the sobriety test. So when I start, whatever, man, alphabets, I said, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What you want me to do? You want me to do the Gettysburg Address too? 7 years ago, our father brought forth upon this continent a new nation conceived and liberated and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He said, sir, get in your car and leave. Before he could start asking me to do my alphabets backwards, you understand? I couldn't do it now, and I'm sober. So I took charge of the situation. I would not dare do that today. So, 1999, I moved to Atlanta, and I'm buying a house in Southeast Atlanta, in a big joint with pool and all of that stuff. So I'm waiting to go to the closing the following day. So the real estate agent say, Mr. Batiste, would you do me a favor? Would you go get this thing for closing tomorrow? I said, can you get it? I said, I've got the Porsche parked at the house and I'm in the SUV, and I've got all of my electronic equipment in the SUV. Then I got all this other stuff in a U-Haul truck. So I don't want to leave this here. He says, I wish I could. If I could get away, I wouldn't ask you to do this. Now, mind you, Miss Crawford, you can relate to this. This was the morning, I kid you not, this was the morning after Ray Lewis and his boys got arrested in Buckhead. So I'm in downtown Atlanta looking for this place to get this copy of this document for closing. And as I turn the corner, the light turns red. And I'm like, I know I made the light. Then I look up the street and I saw the Atlanta police. I say, I hope this brother ain't about no bullshit right now. Because I know cops are hyperactive because of all this Ray Lewis stuff. So he comes up. Now, all of my stuff is in the glove box. I got a TV and a stereo component sitting in the passenger seat. So there's no way I could get to that glove box. So I showed him my license. He says, I need to see your registration and proof of insurance. I said, okay, here's the deal, man. I said, all my stuff is in my glove box. I can't get to it right now. I said, I'm down here getting a document because I'm closing on the house in the morning. I ain't asked you that shit. Hold up, bro. Hold up. Hey, look, we're getting off on the wrong foot here. You understand what I'm saying? I says, would you do me a favor? Just call my stuff in. You can verify that I'm the owner of the car. And you can verify. He says, you don't get the information. So now he gets me out of the car. Here comes his sister. Why you hassling that man? I said, oh shit, just be quiet. Go ahead. I got this. I'm cool. Go ahead. Just go ahead. I'm good. Go ahead. She started mouthing. My man's attitude changed. He already had an attitude, but he went from 0 to 60. And he says something to the effect like, you don't run this shit, I run this. I'm like, hold up, man, this ain't no Rodney King. And I thought it was a joke. He says, oh, you a smart nigga. Put your hands behind your back. And I just look at him, I say, for what? He said, put your hands behind your back. Now, you're going to jail. I said, you joking, right? Do I look like I'm joking? He unsnapped his gun. I said, all right. So I goes to jail. I say, for what? He says, failure, driving without insurance, and failure to produce a registration on the car. I was like, whatever. Now, mind you, I just moved to Atlanta. I don't know nobody. The only woman I know is somebody I've known. So, long story short, I wound up going to court. And since I hadn't done anything, I said, well, certainly when I go to court, we're going to take care of this. So I gets there, and I'm sitting there, and I walked in my business suit because, I have to look like I'm a classy Negro, right? They look at me, they say, oh, this nigga can pay. So the judge, I say, too much paramedic. I said, permission to address the court. He said, who are you? I said, I'm not being represented by an attorney, so I guess I have to advocate for myself. He says, did you have your insurance? And I says, I had everything. It was in the car. He says, do you have it now? I says, yes, I do. He said, well, you should have had it then, $750. And I said, excuse me, for what? He said, because I said so. And I was like, and I'm looking around, and there's this guy behind me kept pulling my coat, literally pulling my coat. And he said, hey, bro, shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm an attorney. Shut up, just be quiet, man. He says, either you pay it now, you could spend the night in jail. And I'm looking at him, and I'm saying to myself, I haven't seen him hand out more than $100 fine since I'm sitting here. But to add insult to injury, I found out that they had put an obstruction to police. What I found out was a felony and then pled it down to misdemeanor. So I'm saying, well, hold up. The attorney said, can I talk to him outside for a minute, Judge? He said, somebody better talk to him before he finds his behind in jail. And I walk out, I'm just seething angry. I'm like, who this mother? He said, man, look, first of all, when you come to court, don't look like you got $1 million in your pocket. He said, second of all, learn how to shut the hell up. I said, well, I figured I had to tell my... He says, no. This ain't about right or wrong. This is about money. And you showed that you're going to pay, so you going to pay. You lucky he only gave you $750. I'm like, you know what? Fuck all of them, you know? I wrote the check and I got out of there. I say all of that to say this. There was a time when we could be belligerent like white people. That time has long since passed. Now, it's crazy because in each instance I hadn't done anything, but I was at the mercy of a system that was not designed for us. We're seen as a way of making money through this system, either as prisoners where we can work for free or paying these fines, first to a bail bondsman and secondly to the court or the city or the town or whatever. So I came to realize that, and I think that's the reason why it needs to be reformed. 25 years ago, I was very brazen. I was very belligerent. But my problem was, how could I show respect to a system that didn't respect me? Simply because you could take something from me didn't make it may have been legal, but it didn't make it ethical or moral. So my problem is here. How is a white man can walk down the street with 45s on each hip, a shotgun in his hand, an M16 on his shoulder, and a rocket launcher there, and he doesn't have to worry about making it home alive or safe? Nobody even challenges him I promise you, that damn rocket launcher is not legal. But nobody challenges his constitutional rights. But every day they challenge our civil rights. So we have to look at more than just policing. We have to look at the court system too. So that's what I'm talking about. To this day, I'm 60 years old. When I was 25, when I was 35, when I was 45, you couldn't tell me nothing. I cringe when I see a cop, eyes left, eyes right, but I don't turn my head. If this so-and-so gets behind me, I say, oh, shit. I start looking for all my stuff, and I put it on the dashboard, and I check my speed. If white people don't have to do this, we shouldn't just be talking about defunding the police. We should just make one simple change. Let's treat the black man when he has a police encounter the same way we treat the white man when he walks down the street exercising his constitutional rights to bear arms. Even in a place where It's not legal. You understand? To carry, to conceal and carry, or openly carry, but they do it. There's something wrong when we have to tell our children how to behave when they've done nothing wrong because we fear for their lives. And then those children have to get out and they have to protest to have their civil rights implemented like they are not worthy of their constitutional rights. One thing I say about this generation, they're fearless. My generation, we've dropped the ball. And as a result, these young folks don't always respect us. And I can understand why. Somewhere in the 80s, we got so caught up with having cars and houses and living in this neighborhood and being able to take a cruise and being able to go here and go there, that we forgot that those were things that meant nothing if our safety was not insured. So now we left it up to our children to reclaim the things that we took for granted and let go by the wayside. It pisses me off when my generation watched Ali sacrifice everything. And who knows how great he would have truly been if he'd have been allowed to fight during the peak of his career. And then people my age get mad at me when I say somebody like an Oprah, somebody like a Michael Jordan, these people, why should it have to be a Colin Kaepernick or who's about 30 years old or LeBron James? What happened to the 50 and 60-year-olds? And why aren't we holding them accountable? So if you want to get mad at them, because I'm going to keep on saying what I say. You understand what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there. These young kids, they need us. They need us to help them. They need us to give them direction. They need us to stand by them. They need us because the history that we live through is foreign to them. They're not being taught that history in school. So if we don't give it to them, they don't get it. And in a lot of houses, the mama may be 32, the grandmother is 48. And the 16-year-old has 2 kids. So I'm not putting anybody down because anybody knows me. No, I had kids when I was young, very young. But the difference was, even though I didn't always listen, I had a basis of home training. We spoiled our kids, and as a result, our kids want everything right now. And that's what the millennials are. And because they were spoiled, because we gave them everything, they are the ones who's running this movement. While we sit at home, they're doing this. I understand why they work so hard to give me what I had when I was young. It's up to us to give it to the young folks now. But the one thing that they don't always believe in, they believe in money. They don't necessarily believe in voting. They don't necessarily believe in the process itself, especially when it doesn't work in our favor. So I think that's the thing that we have to teach them. We have to teach them to be just a little patient. I don't want to. I look at them like stallions and coats. I don't want to break their spirit. I want to encourage them. That's why I tell them, you don't let nobody tell you were wrong. When you got into civil disobedience and it resulted in some looting or burning, you didn't invent that. So don't let nobody make you feel bad about doing it. But rise above that. Look to your elders because we do have something to contribute if we're doing what we're supposed to do. I know voting is not the silver bullet that kills the proverbial werewolf that we call racism or inequality and all of these other things. But I know one thing for damn sure. Too many people died to make sure that we will vote to give it away. So that I'm certain of. I know another thing. I know that even the poorest of white folks vote. I said it before and I'll say it again. They literally may not have a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out. But when it comes time to vote, they're going to make sure that their Mitch McConnells and their Donald J. Trumps are voted for. We are the ones who keep falling down, so we can't make that mistake again. So I want to get us to November, but as the old folks used to say, by hook or crook. But I'm going to show up. Because personally, I don't believe in mail-in votes. Personally, if there's a mail boy in my office and he decides not to deliver this piece of mail, I have no way of knowing. All I know is I did my part. I filled out the ballot and I mailed it. After that, it's anybody's guess. So I believe in showing up, especially if you're going to bring your behind somewhere to do something else. This is the one thing that we can do. So let's work with these young folks. Let's not stop with policing. Let's take it to the whole. Let's slam dunk when we think of the criminal justice system. And I went off on a tangent, but I wanted you to understand that it wasn't that long ago when we had rights. It wasn't that long ago when we could talk back and we could ask questions. Because talking back is not a bad thing. It wasn't that long ago when we could say, why are you stopping me? What did I do? Without fear of winding up on the 6 o'clock news, without fear of leaving our children fatherless, without the fear of being able to go home that night. Ironically, as we have more instances of things on tape, we have more instances of these occurrences taking place. So, my history is our history. My history is American history. My strength is I know that history. My strength is I know what happened in 55 when a boy named Emmett Till. I know what happened in 63. I know what happened in 68 and 60. I know all of these things, 55, 65, 1865. And last week I said something that was wrong on purpose and nobody corrected me. So let me go back and fix it. I said it had been in 155 years since we were free. The truth of the matter is, in November 1863 is when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. I said 1865, and I was hoping somebody would correct me, but nobody did. So let me remind you, 1865, we were free, but it was still during the Civil War. So we had to wait until the end of the war, and that's why we got Juneteenth, June the 19th, 1865. So it's been 155 years since then. 155 years since then. And I don't know if I say 65 or 55 because I'm aggravated now. I think we dropped the ball. It's been 167 years since the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So let's do what we need to do. Let's stay tuned in. Let's stay engaged. Let's teach our children their history so that they'll know. So that they'll know they don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of this we already know. When people ask me, how do I remember that? I laugh because to me, it's like hearing an old song. When you hear a certain song, you say, oh man, that's that Earth, Wind & Fire jam. We was bumping when that was out. And it automatically has that brain muscle memory. So when I hear certain things, I see certain things, it reminds me. Just as I can remember those ugly russet Flag Brother shoes, I can remember when this happened or the look on my father or my mother's face. And that's what we have to be to our children. So I'm not going to, I apologize for going off. Again, to everybody that's on here now, I want to thank you guys again for your well wishes and your prayers for my sister. It means the world to me, and it means the world to her as well. She doesn't do the whole social media thing, and that's just her style. But I rep for everybody. They call me, ironically, my niece and my sister call me Trapper John MD. And I told her, no, I'm more like Hawkeye Pierce. But anyway, understand, that used to be one of my mom's favorite shows. So my niece used to sit and watch it with my mama. So she told me, she says, yeah, Uncle Henry. I told my mama, I said, oh, yeah, really? So when I talked to my sister yesterday, I said, yeah, so you need to know your daughter told on you. She said, told on me about what? I said, yeah, she told me you called me Trapper John MD. She said, oh, she didn't tell you that. She gave you that nickname, huh? I was like, oh, no, little heifer ain't say that. I said, wait till I talk to her. So it was good to see that my sister's spirits was up. She's doing what she's supposed to do. It hurts my heart because I know right now I couldn't visit her even if I were there because her immune system is depressed, is overwhelmed, and superheroes, I know I've been in contact with COVID-19 at least 11 times, or 11 times. So it wouldn't be prudent for me to visit. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for the love you show me week in and week out. I want to remind you again to go to my YouTube, check out my past videos. I'm going to be doing some other things. Hang tight. Your boy's about to blow up. So, no, seriously, I got some things that I want to do. So keep your hands together. Say a little prayer for her. Let's say a little prayer for each other. Last thing I'm going to say about this COVID-19, and I'm going to get out of here. And I'm starting to feel like a Baptist preacher, Last thing I'm going to say about this COVID-19, a lot of people are having heart attacks. A lot of people are having strokes because it's the fear of the unknown. You need to get outside. Now people are starting to tell you the same thing I was telling you about those masks a long time ago. The mask just keeps your germs to yourself. That's all it does. It doesn't, but how it hurts you is two ways. A, you're not getting pure oxygen. So when you watch these shows, they always talk about O2 sats. That's the amount of oxygen that's in the blood. As the oxygen levels decrease, there's a poor exchange. Every time we inhale oxygen. We exhale CO2. With that mask on, that's the second thing that it does. We re-inhale the CO2 that we just exhaled. So that's the bad thing about it. All of these masks, these fabric masks and these fashion masks showing you that, you're the world's greatest grandmother or your number one Cowboys fan or whatever, it's not good for you. So thank you, people. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. See you next week. Same Baptiste time, same Baptiste place. As always, don't be so afraid to die that you forget how to live. I've been dying for 60 years now. I ain't got there yet. Now I'm planning on getting there for at least another 30-something. Yeah, I should live till I'm 97. Nipsey Russell once told a joke. I said Nipsey Russell, that's for old folks, not Nipsey Hussle, okay? He played with the words. Nipsey Russell told a joke. He said, will sex be great when I'm 108? He said, I know it will. I just hope I can participate. So with that, love, peace. Your man is tripping. I'm out of here. Little hair grease and I'm sliding. Good night, folks.